Students of 9th standard, Unit 5, Human Anatomy and Physiology, that Lesson 11, Digestive System, we have learnt about structure of teeth and digestive system structure. Now in part 2, we are going to learn digestion of food, how digestion takes place and how absorption and excretion takes place. That is the other 3 stages of nutrition. Is that clear? The process of digestion is accomplished by mechanical and chemical processes. The buccal cavity performs 2 major functions called mastication of food and facilitation of swallowing. We have learnt about swallowing thoroughly in the previous chapter, that is previous unit. Sorry, not chapter, unit. That is the tongue presses upward and backward against the roof, that is palate of the mouth, and this forces the bolus, the ball of chewed food, into the throat or the pharynx. Got it? Mucus in saliva helps in lubricating and adhering the masticated food particles into bolus. Bolus is then conveyed into the pharynx. Got it? So that conveying in only is called as swallowing. The back part of the roof, the mouth cavity called soft palate, closes the opening between the throat and the nasal passage. The larynx, which is located at the entrance of the windpipe, is pulled upward to bring it close to the back of the tongue when flap called epiglottis closes its opening. Thus, only passage available to the swallowed food is esophagus. Got it? Then the bolus is conveyed into the pharynx and then into the esophagus by the process of swallowing. Then bolus further passes down through the esophagus by successive waves of wave-like movement of muscular contractions called peristalsis. Peristalsis is the wave of constrictions caused by circular muscles of the gut pushing the food along. As the wave passes, the circular muscles relax. The peristalsis occur through all regions of the gut. Is that clear, children? And the mucus is the fluid which lubricate the food. It is a slimy fluid and food is pushed down to the stomach. Got it? Now what will happen in the mouth and what digestion it is taking place? Before going into the stomach, we are going to learn this. And there is no digestion in esophagus and jejunum, children. There are 2 places there is no digestion at all. They only act as passages of food, esophagus and jejunum. So now, salivary juice acts upon the starch. So starch in the presence of ptyalin, that is salivary amylase, gets converted into maltose, a disaccharide. Saliva secreted in the oral cavity contains electrolytes also, namely sodium, potassium, chlorine and HCO, and the enzymes, namely salivary amylase and lysozyme. The chemical process of digestion is initiated in the oral cavity by the hydrolytic action of carbohydrates, splitting the enzyme into salivary amylase. Got it? Lysozyme present in the saliva acts as an antibacterial agent that prevents infections. Got it? Now you have learned the other 2 processes, namely swallowing and peristalsis. Now the food entered the stomach. What happens in the stomach? In the stomach, the food is now called as bolus. Now bolus entered stomach. Gastric juice is secreted by the inner lining of the stomach. It is colorless, highly acidic liquid containing water, some salts, hydrochloric acid and enzyme called pepsin. Got it? The mucosa of stomach as gastric glands. Mucous neck cells secrete mucus. Pectic or chief cells secrete proenzymes and pepsinogen. And parietal and oxygenatic cells secrete hydrochloric acid. Got it? This factor is essential for absorption of vitamin B12 also. The factor namely intrinsic factor. Got it? The stomach stores food for 4 to 5 hours. The food mixes thoroughly with the acidic gastric juice wall of the stomach by churning movement of its muscular walls, and now food is called chyme. What are the chemical activities? Now let us see. The proenzyme namely pepsinogen on exposure to hydrochloric acid gets converted into active enzyme called pepsin. What are the uses of hydrochloric acid then? The hydrochloric acid serves 2 purposes: kills any germs which may have excreted along with the food, and activates pepsin to act upon protein. Initially it is called pepsinogen, no? Now it becomes pepsin. Got it? Pepsin converts proteins in proteoses and peptones. Got it? Pepsin digests proteins about 20% only. Got it? And in fact, pepsin is first secreted and then only activated by hydrochloric acid. Now you understood the importance of hydrochloric acid. Pepsinogen becomes HCl pepsin. Then proteins, pepsin, peptides. Prorenin, HCl works on it, renin it becomes. Casein, a milk protein, becomes renin with the action of renin become paracasein or a curds, or it's called a peptide which is insoluble. Got it? So HCl also provides the acidic pH about 1.8 and optimal for pepsin. Got it? The mucus and bicarbonates present in gastric juice play an important role in lubrication and protection of the mucosal epithelium from excoriation by the highly concentrated. Excoriation means corrosion. The wall should not be corroded. All that is being protected by this mucus. Got it? That is why mucus is very important. Mucus will be secreted like a thick wall, and again it will be digested, again it will be re-secreted. Got it? Renin is a proteolytic enzyme and that acts on milk. Got it? Now the next part is the bile part. In the bile turns the food from acidic medium to the alkaline medium, and it makes the food emulsification. Got it? Bile salts reduce the surface tension of fats and break them into tiny droplets for providing great surface area for the action of enzymes. Got it? That is acidic chyme into alkaline chyme by the action of bile and sodium bicarbonate. And fats emulsion by bile's emulsification. Got it? Trypnogen and pancreas. The pancreatic juice contain trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidase, amylases and lipases and nucleases. Here in this class level you are going to learn only 3: amylopsin, trypsin and stepsin. Got it? Amylopsin digests. Got it? Amylopsis digests leftover starch into maltase. Trypsinogen is activated by an enzyme called enterokinase, secreted by the intestinal mucosa into active trypsin, which in turn activates the other enzymes in the pancreatic juice. The bile released into the duodenum contains bilirubin and biliverdin, bile salts, cholesterol and phospholipids, but no enzymes. That I have already taught. Biles help in emulsification. Biles also activates lipase. Got it? Now before going for the intestines, now what are the other actions of the pancreatic juice we'll see. Trypsin acts on the remaining proteins and polypeptides to produce smaller peptides and amino acids. Trypsin, by the action of trypsinogen, becomes trypsin. Got it? That is only called enterokinase or enteropeptidase. Then stepsin acts upon fats to split them into fatty acids and glycerol. So the reactions can be written like this: trypsinogen, enterokinase, trypsin. Proteins and peptides trypsin, smaller peptides plus amino acids. Leftover starch, amylopsin, pancreatic amylase, maltose. Emulsified fat, fatty acids and glycerol. Got it? Now we are going for the small intestine. Got it? In small intestine, what this overall reaction? Before going for absorption, we are going to go for small intestine, children. Intestinal juice contains a mixture of intestinal juice contain eripsin, a mixture of peptidases to convert remaining peptides into amino acids, maltase to digest maltose into glucose, lactase to digest lactose into glucose, and galactose to digest sucrase or invertase to split sucrose into glucose and fructose, and some traces of lipase to digest fats into fatty acids and glycerols. All these changes will take place in the small intestine. You can learn the equations like this. Peptides into amino acids by the action of eripsin peptidases. Maltose into glucose by maltase. Sucrose into glucose and fructose by sucrase. Lactose into glucose and galactose by lactase. Emulsified fat into fatty acids and glycerol by lipase. Got it? Like this, various changes will take place and food gets digested, and the next process is absorption of digested food. Absorption is the process by which the end products of digestion pass through the intestinal mucosa or intestinal wall into the blood stream. It is carried out by passive or facilitated transport mechanisms. Small amount of monosaccharides like glucose, amino acids and some electrolytes like chloride ions are generally absorbed by simple diffusion. The passage of these substances into blood depends upon concentration gradient. Got it? That is lower concentration and higher concentration. The movement of the salts from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Some of the substances like fructose and some amino acids are absorbed with the help of carriers like ions like sodium. Got it? This mechanism is called facilitated transport. Now, how these products actually get into and what is meant by excretion, these two you are going to learn. Got it? Now, the final products, how they are going. First, we learn with the amino acids. Amino acids and simple sugars like glucose, fructose, galactose have a relatively small size. You have learned? No, they go as simple diffusion into the thin epithelium of villi and reach their blood capillaries and finally enter the blood circulation, first to reach the liver through the hepatic portal vein. Then the fatty acids and glycerols are absorbed into lymph vessels or lacteals to enter the lymphatic system, which forms a network all over the body to ultimately empty its contents into the bloodstream. The food passes very slowly through the intestine, taking about 4 hours to enter the last part, which is called large intestine. Got it? So, in this also again, fatty acids and glycerols being insoluble cannot be absorbed into the blood. They are first incorporated into small droplets called micelles, which move into intestinal mucosa. They are reformed into very small protein coated fat globules called chylomicrons, which are transported into lymph vessels, lacteals and the villi. These lymph vessels ultimately release the absorbed substances into bloodstream. Got it, children? Before going for the summary, we are going to learn the last part called large intestine. The large intestine is about 1.5 meters long. It has 3 parts, namely cecum, colon and rectum. The cecum is a small blind pouch situated at the junction of the small and large intestine. From its blind end projects a narrow worm shaped called vermiform appendix. Got it? Appendicitis, have you any time here, children? That is, have you heard of it? The pain, severe pain in the abdominal region, sudden pain, it's called appendicitis. Actually, it is a cecum is a small blind pouch. From the blind end, there is a narrow tail-like structure, children. A narrow worm-like, small bent shape, worm-shaped tube, and it is called vermiform appendix. Got it? And today its function is not known, and it is called vestigial organ. Got it? The colon is much broader than the ileum and is little more than meter long. It passes up abdomen on the right, and it is called ascending colon, crosses to the left just below the stomach, and it is called transverse colon, and down on the left side descends down, so it is called descending colon. The rectum is the last part, about 15 centimeters long, which opens at the anus. The anus has again a sphincter. Sphincter is circular muscles. You have learned cardiac and pyloric sphincters in your previous unit. Got it? So sphincter will be present. It keeps and it closes except when passing the bowels. It is always closed. When passing bowels motion, it will be opened. Got it, children? And functions of large intestines: it secretes no enzymes, so it absorbs, so no digestion, It absorbs much water but very little digested food from the contents, which mainly consists of undigested material. After much water is absorbed, the contents become semi-solid fecus, which passes into the rectum and are expelled intervals. Got it? Expelling out of the food, undigested food, is called defecation. The expulsion of undigested remains of food from the alimentary canal is called defecation. The fecus are normally composed of nearly 75% of water, 25% of solid matter, which again consists of dead bacteria, and 2 to 3% of protein, 10 to 20% of fat, and 30% of roughage. That is where roughage is very important. Otherwise, constipation, you have learnt in your nutrition lesson. Got it, children? The bad odor of fecus is due to bacterial action of the bacteria present on the fecus. Now, another process called assimilation. The assimilation of food means assimilation is conversion of absorbed digested food into body material. Previously, you have learned what is meant by absorption. The absorbed material, what will happen to it? The food digested and absorbed by the gut are transported in two ways: through hepatic portal system and through lymphatic system. You have learned lymph takes fats and all, isn't it? Simple sugars, amino acids, vitamins and minerals are carried out to the liver by the hepatic portal system. The liver converts that excess glucose into other simpler sugars into insoluble glycogen, which can temporarily stored in the liver itself. This process is known as glycogenesis. When needed, the liver reconverts the glycogen into glucose. Glucose gets converted into glycogen, called glycogenesis. And whenever needed, on fasting day, you need excess glucose. Then glycogen is again converted back into glucoses. That is called glycogenolysis. And puts back into the bloodstream. Glucose is required in the body tissues as a source of energy in cellular respiration and also in the synthesis of certain compounds. Next, amino acids circulate in the body and they serve as body building blocks of proteins. The amino acids cannot be stored. So any excess amino acids are broken down in the liver itself by a process called deamination, in which nitrogen containing amino group is removed and converted into urea for excretion, and then remaining part forms glucose, which can be utilized. Got it? The fatty acids and glycerol are absorbed by the gut and are transported mainly through intestinal villi and lymphatic system. Just now we have learned through lymphatic system lacteals, fats and fatty acids, and the other things by hepatic portal vein. Got it? The thoracic duct of the lymphatic system empties it into large veins carrying blood to heart. Some fats are used in the synthesis of certain compounds in the body cells. The excess quantities deposited chiefly below the skin as subcutaneous fat, adipose tissue, and around visceral organs in smaller quantities. In tissues lesson you have learned fat containing cells, adipose tissues. Got it, children? So overall you have learned how absorption and digestion takes place. Got it, children? Is it clear? Thank you, children. Thank you very much.